So Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer, issue 1. And I've got this through subscription. It's got at least 2 magazines because I've got to flip over to do that unless they printed the back wrong. So let's open it up and see what's inside. And here we are. So first up, we've got the nice dice box again as before. We just check this out. We go the nice D&D Adventurer dice tin, complete with our set of dice. So we already have 1 set of dice, so we're ready to play Dungeons and Dragons. And there's a couple of bits here as well to go through as well, you see. So we start off Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer issue 1. So Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer, learn, play, explore. So this is issue 1, which is going to tell us how to become a dungeon master, expert tips, give us the lore, new exclusive adventure, and combat rules. So we'll see exactly what state we're at by the end of issue 1. But going off previous stuff I had, like the Battle Games for Middle-earth, I should expect to be able to at least play something. Although possibly you might need the second issue because that needed 2 issues for miniatures. But anyway, so here we are, opening up. We've got our welcome. So you see we're going to have an adventure in this issue. It's got advice, which is basically how to play D&D and the Dungeon Master. Character creation, so it's going to introduce us how to create characters. And the lore, it's going to give us one of the locations. So starting if it teaches us how to play. As you can see, all of these got the hole punched and you've got the rippable effect. So when we eventually get a folder, you can just pull it apart and put all the things together. Such as character creation is A1 to A5A, overviews A1, A2, A3, B1, laws A1. So you'll be able to separate it and then it'll go A, B, C, D, etc. You know, it tells us how to be a player, how to be a dungeon master. And this is still just giving us overviews of the game. So Adventure Begins is giving you tips for how to start playing. If you've never played D&D before, it could be a useful magazine for that. Tells you you've got your own set of dice to use. I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons since the original Red Box Adventure, so I'm quite interested to see how it differs. I'm assuming this is 5th edition, if that's the latest. And so I'll just see how it goes. So continue the overview. It tells us over here that we're in the Forgotten Realms, which as far as I know is one of the adventures. Like you could also get Greyhawk and Ravenloft and other stuff. So I think it's an actual setting for D&D using the D&D rules. So they're building on stuff that already exists, which is quite cool. Tells us down here as well, the origin of D&D in case you're curious. And then we get to the structure and play. So it lets you know how to move through the game. So now I'll roll the dice. Explains all the dice and about doing difficulty checks. This is like a new rule for me. I knew of it. I didn't know how to calculate it. So knowing that 5s are very easy and 30 is almost impossible, that's quite interesting to note. Explains about advantage and disadvantage. It's a rule I know of. It's a rule I've never used. So it's got it all there for me, and explains about the dice, which is quite good for newbies. And then we move on to Dungeon Master, explain about how you basically control the game. Right down to you'll be all the NPCs, so non-playing characters. You'll do ability checks, use different voices for them if you can, so you can act it out. And you don't have to be great at acting, even says it there, which is quite nice of them to let you know. Just as long as everyone's having fun, that's the important point. Let's all have fun. Finish off the overview. It tells about the DM doing in session 0. Which I've heard of players doing before. Usually they do the character creation in session 0, which is also mentioned down here, personalising your story. And it just says to talk with the players and find out what they want. Do they want some heavy world building? Do they just want to get into it, and so forth. And a nice little tip there for the DM that if your dice rolls are too good, you can just fudge them a little bit rather than wipe out your entire party on the first group of rats they find. And playing the game here does say you don't need to know all the rules, just the basics. So this issue 1 is going to give us the basics, and then yeah, as it says, we can just play. Any rules questions that come up can just be answered later on when we get more information. I imagine this will just be very simple and it won't have anything too serious in the adventure. We get to move on to playing characters now, and it does tell us it's got some pre-generated ones, so we're going to meet those guys very shortly. Here we are. Human Rogue, Wood Elf Fighter, Hill Dwarf Cleric, and Lightfoot Halfling Wizard. A bit different from my standard Wizard, Barbarian, Elf, Dwarf that I'm used to. Although very similar to the Parker D&D game where it was Cleric, Wizard, Thief and Fighter. But a balanced class here of everything you'd need. And all of their character sheets are definitely going to be included later, so we'll have a look at those. Here it explains all your ability scores for you, what they're about, modifiers, associated skills, etc. And this is something similar, related to everything I've done before, so this I do know about. Then it tells you about here all your ability scores, dice rolls, your high scores you'll have, associated skills, proficiency skills, which you get a bonus, and then your general ability score modifiers. All handy information to know. And this table here is new for me again. I used to wave 18 was the maximum, and that was a +3. And now looking at it, that's not only +4, you get all the way up to 30. Species as well, so not all just going to be humans. There'll be other stuff apart from humans. I'm used to elves and dwarves, halflings, yeah. There's a couple of other things, like there's some creature over there. I'll find out what it is, I guess. I'm not certain. But here it just explains the 4 species that are included. So we've got a human, our Lightfoot halfling, our hill dwarf, and our wood elf. And it goes about languages, which is also something important. Most people speak common, most species can speak their own language, and then some can speak other related. So it talks about that a bit there too. Next, we move into classes, letting us know about those 12 main classes. Obviously, we've got the 4 that's already included. They talk about the rest in future issues, and telling us that we're at 1st level, and apparently over the course of the magazine, you should increase to 5th level. I thought the magazine was about 80 issues, so that means you'd increase the level every 20 issues, maybe? I'm not certain, we'll find out. And it does let you know that you can get all the way up to 20th level. And here we are, so explaining about our fighters, our rogues, our wizards, and our clerics. Of course, another important point about your characters, all your equipment, your weapon, your armors, your gold pieces. It's not actual piece of equipment, it's just in the section to let you know that's how you get equipment. And equipment packs. Unsurprisingly, we have a burglar pack, a scholar's pack, explorer's pack, and a priest pack. And each one of the pre-generated characters starts with one of these packs. And our lore section, so all this is going to talk about is Phandalin. Got a nice little map of the place. Saying here, settlers and citizens of Neverwinter and Waterdeep have begun the hard work of reclaiming the ruins of Phandalin. They're both cities I've heard of before. Waterdeep's a board game, Neverwinter's a computer game I used to play. And in the massive D&D section, there's going to be loads of stories and campaigns to do with those. But for now, we're just worried about the ruins of Phandalin. Welcome to Phandalin. So as it says here, the tavern in Phandalin will be the starting point of most of our D&D adventures, including King Under the Hill, which is going to be our very first encounter. So this encounter, this is for the Dungeon Master's eyes only. If you're ever planning on playing this adventure as one of the players without knowing, just follow the chapters to skip ahead. You don't want to hear this. Otherwise, let's go through what the King Under the Hill has. Lets you know beforehand, you need to read the combat booklet included. We're going to read that after because we're not playing the adventure yet, we're just checking out the magazine. And the main bit of this encounter is that a load of rats have come to the tavern and the heroes have got to get rid of them. For a beginning DM, this is quite good. It gives you top tips about all the stuff you need to know to help run an adventure. Like it's got a map, so you can look at that for advice on locations. So you've got all your keyed rooms there. It's got your features of the room. So when you describe it all, as it should say, the Dungeon Master describes everything to the players. You know how everything looks. So what the doors look like, the lighting, the architecture, and so on. And it'll tell you here how you begin the encounter with a nice little text box you can read for your players. And here we get to the map of the actual dungeon part of the adventure. All the descriptions of what we're going to do. It tells us how to end the encounter. And here we've got a swarm of rats and it gives us the actual creature stat block. So it explains to you what everything means, which is quite good if you've never seen it before. And yeah, nice to tell me armor class, because I don't know if you'll know this, but I played Thaco. So 0 was amazing and 10 was awful. Apparently armor class 10 here isn't so bad. 10 is about average also, according to this little box here. A lot of information here that also tells you, don't worry about, we'll go through it later. Which obviously means there's no way to get these conditions at the moment. And on the back, we've still got a couple more boxes. So here you go, your cranium rats and your commoners. I don't know why it's got commoners. Maybe they'll fight the rats. Maybe you've got the option to fight them if you just want to go off piece and just hurt everyone. Might be for the future if you decide to create some chaotic evil characters and just kill everyone in the inn. Or whatever. Anyway, adventure done. Here we have our introduction to combat then. Our nice combat rules explained. Gives us surprising the enemies, managing hit points, and death saves explained. And so it breaks it down nice and simply. All your combat is just going to be a 5-turn loop that's going to repeat basically until someone wins, effectively. You determine surprise, establish positions, roll initiative, take turns to begin the next round. Also gives you detail on reactions. Then it's going to explain hit point and damage, which I haven't just read it yet, but I'm pretty certain it's going to say hit points are good, you take damage, you run out of hit points, that's bad. A nice combat example here. I'll have a read through that later just to see what's different than what I'm used to. But I do like it when they have a good example. And again, it's a nice little book you can refer to if you're unsure. And there we go. Beginning the next round. Top tip, focus all your attacks on one person. And both sides can use that tip. Now we've got our character sheets. Here we have Grantor Fanrax. the human rogue. And it's got all the stuff you need to know there. And artwork on the back, and a lot of information. Some of it you fill in, some of it's probably not going to get filled in anytime soon. Rezagar Stormhelm, the Hill Dwarf Cleric. And he's got a lot of information filled in because he actually can cast spells unlike the rogue. Then we have Arena Iloris, the Wood Elf Fighter. And there we go, no spells for them. And Merovich Farfoot, the Lightfoot Halfling Wizard. All of this, more spell slots here. And just having a closer look, you can see it's got all the information it's already talked about. So you've got your stats, you've got your bonuses, all your saving throws there, armor class, initiative, speed. I don't think it talks about moving. I'll have to double check, but I didn't see it. That might come up later on. Attacks and spell casting. You've got your money and equipment, proficiencies, languages, features and traits. And the final bit of the magazine, here we go. Here's the Start Your Adventure Today leaflet. And this is probably going to be the biggest change from before, because as far as I know, they've changed most of the actual deal plan. So here we go. What is Dungeons and Dragons? All the stuff you're going to get. Here's what's going to be inside your magazine. Binders for your collection. No mention of the premium stuff, which I'm trying to find here. Interesting to see. Color-coded adventurers. Each of the adventures in the collection is artfully color-coded, so your dice will always match your adventure. For example, Adventure 1 includes black, red and gold dice. So I've got black and red, but I don't have any gold. While Adventure 2 is themed around black, blue and silver. So if that means adventures or issues, because if it means adventures, then that means the adventure we've just started, Adventure 1, is going to continue into the second issue, because I know it's got gold dice. And just going back, 1, but it's actually, yeah, so Adventure 1, Encounter 1. So yeah, the next one we get the gold dice is still Adventure 1, but it must be Adventure 1, Encounter 2. So move on to future issues, and in fact, by the looks of it, you can see the art's different in that magazine than this magazine. And from what I know from the preview, the first 4 magazines all have the same artwork. So at least the first 4 magazines are all going to be Adventure 1, and then at some point we move on to Adventure 2. And here, get your free Introduction to Combat guide. Subscribe today, get all these free gifts. So I went through it before when I was talking about comparing the previous issue to this, but the gifts have changed slightly. And there's our issue 2 advert. Again, when they emailed, they offered a premium subscription that came with 5 coins, and you paid a bit more during the course of the magazine length. It's not mentioned anywhere here, and there's still no mention of the miniatures, which obviously for the original trial magazine they were offering miniatures every so often for an extra $1.50 per issue. But from what I've seen, issue 3 should come with some acrylic minis of some kind. So once that gets delivered, we'll be able to look at those. Anyway, it's Dungeons & Dragons Adventures issue 1, complete with a nice dice tin. Issue 2 will be on the way after this. I'll probably have a look at how this compares to the original. Might be exactly the same and the art's different. Might be exactly the same and the magazine layout's different. Or it might be some differences. Who knows? We'll find out. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope to catch you soon.